the pandemic, 21 months ago, when the pandemic hit, Watershed was sort of in this upswing, right? Like we had worked through some really important conversations as a community. People were starting to show up here. There was some traction. And then the pandemic hit. And like every other church in the United States, the longer the pandemic went, the giving piece, the generosity, the resources started to wane. Generally speaking, when people can't show up to a space, it becomes, at least for some folks, harder for their resources to continue to show up in that space. And so we started to see that. On top of that, and if you've been in Preface, you've actually heard us talk about this, some of the things that we started to center ourselves around, some of the voices, some of the solidarity that we was naming, some of the anti-racism, Black Lives Matter, the conversations that we were hosting also created some slippage. And what I mean by that is, for some folks, it was too much, and so they left. Some of you are here because those conversations were being included. Because in your previous religious experience, there wasn't anything being said, and so Watershed became a place that drew you. And so while that's been going on, while there has been this pandemic sort of absorbing our resources, some things were happening that were helping us sustain ourselves. And maybe you could address some of those things.
We, like any small business, we were able to apply for some of the PPP money that the government was giving out. So we got like $75,000 in that. That was huge for us during the pandemic. That was a big piece for us. We also had, because the building was not being used on Sundays, we had classrooms we were able to rent out. That gave us about another $75,000. So we saw $150,000 come in last year that sustained us through those who said, you know what, my giving is, they retracted their giving, but we were able to see funding some other ways. We entered this year with the hope that the pandemic was hopefully gently going away, whatever that means, right?
Until Delta reared its head.
That's right. That's right. But with the hope that it was going away, that people were gathering with vaccinations and with a different kind of confidence, good or bad, but they were nonetheless were gathering. So we saw that happen. For 17 years, we've seen the summer months always do this in terms of attendance and generosity. That's just always been the way it's played out. And always, for the last 16, 17 years, fall has been a time where we kind of recoup the fall or the summer slump. And we came into this fall optimistic that it would be a fall not unlike any other fall, where we would see the resources kind of pick back up. And so about 5, 6, 7 weeks ago, when we were hoping that was going to happen, it didn't. And so we began to become a little bit more aware of where we were sitting with certain things. And because the giving did not sort of elevate to where it typically does in the fall, we are right now at a $65,000 deficit, budget-wise, which is, for our community, that's a ton of money.
Yeah, so it's never been $65,000 in November.
Right, because what'll happen is we might be down 15 or 20,000 this time of year, and then we do some year-end conversations, and you guys come around that beautifully, just like you did with Tunglal's generosity last week, and you respond to that, and we end the year in a solid fashion. You guys have told us for years and years and years, you got to talk to us when things are the way they are and they're not good, or when they're really good, whatever it is. So things are really a little bit stressful right now in that sense. And so we have some thoughts towards what that looks like in terms of healing it and solving it, because it is a problem that we do need to heal, not only in the immediate but also for long term. So the immediate solution is, if we can see it, if we take that $65,000 and we cut it in about half, say $33,000. If we can raise $33,000 by year end, which is a lot of money, but if we can do this by year end, we feel like we can at least move into next year with cash flow in a solid space. But for some of you are saying, but listen, I don't want to give money to something that doesn't have a plan for going forward with a healthy sort of disposition. So our healthy disposition is this. Pre-COVID, we had a narrative that was really helpful for us, and we would say, all right, we were looking for a handful of families each month, household units, each month, that are saying, I'm in for $100 or more in generosity at a recurring level, which at a recurring level, from a compounding perspective, creates a lot of health for us long-term, months out. And so here's our request. At the immediate level, $33,000. That's audacious, but it's very doable. I know there are people here that have never been a part of generosity, but you've been a part of this community for several months or a couple of years, whatever it is. Now is the time in terms of the one time. In terms of recurring, what we're looking for are 5 households, 5 family units, household individuals that are saying, I'm in for $100 or more a month at a recurring level going forward. So we're halfway into November right now. Are there 5 households online, here in this space, that are going to hear it later on social media, that are saying, you know what, we're in for $100 more a month? That's helpful, but we're already halfway into November. So we got 5 families for November, and we got 5 families for December. So our goal is for 10 household units the rest of this year that says we're in for $100 or more a month at a recurring level. So we're I hope you're hearing this. There's kind of 2 narratives here. There's the one that says we need to raise a good portion of our deficit to be able to end the year solidly, $33,000. That's a lot of money. But then at a recurring level, for those to say, you know what, maybe you're already giving a little bit, you say, you know what, I can bump it a little bit higher, or you're not giving at all, we welcome that. And let me say this as a caveat. If you can only do $10 a month, so be it. That's wonderful. That's helpful. As we aggregate those kinds of resources and generosity, it's a game changer.
So one other thing I want you to speak about, that there's internal things that we're working towards as well involving our space.
Oh, for sure.
And
yeah.
Like we're tightening our belts even more so than we have been.
Yeah.
We're going back and going, all right, what's the next wave of non-essential
Absolutely.
things that we're going to have to kind of let go of? But can you talk about this space and how that's continuing?
Yeah, so our goal for 2022 is to rent $100,000 worth of space in this building, and that it will not impact Sunday morning.
Yeah.
That's the plan. Right now, we're renting $75,000. So our goal is to get it to $100,000. We've got some very clear. I thought we had it buttoned up this week, but the jury's out right now with a tenant. But the point is, we're moving towards that, and we feel like that's going to be a huge piece of it. So as we look at going forward with a pandemic, you don't raise funds like you used to in the old days, right? You stand up and just everybody writes big old fat checks. It's a different day, and we're not in front of as many people on a Sunday. We used to be in front of 2 and 3 times this number any given Sunday. So when you put that out there, the response is much more reactive, not unlike what happened last week. Yeah. And so the hope is this: we know there are many, many of you who are brand new to this community. And you're jumping in, and you've benefited from the friends you've made and the relationships and the experience here. And so maybe this is the time for you to say, you know what, we're in. We're making our first overture now.
Well, and there's a reason that we're calling it sustain and grow, because there's something worth protecting here and
Sure.
stabilizing. There's a conversation, a theological, progressive conversation that we're starting to help shape, not just in the city, but we're anxious and excited and ambitious about how that might expand beyond just Charlotte and beyond the 4 walls of this community. There's a presence beyond the border of this nation in places like India that we're excited to be a part of. And then there's what happens in the actual interaction in relationships here. In an hour, I'm going to be standing in front of a group of people talking about the impact of one person in multiple lives, and people are going to be talking about the way that person has impacted them. This community, we're told by you, this is a special place. And it feels like we're just getting started, and there's a whole host of you that have come into this over the last 12 months, and now we're inviting you to be a part of a future that we get to create together. $33,000 is a lot of money. The O'Neills and the Hoferts are raising their hand going, we're in for the first 1,000, if that's helpful, because we're not going to ask our community to do something we're not willing to do ourselves. Again, I know there's a spectrum of what is possible for each person and each family, but would you at least consider it? Would you take some time today over the next couple of days. Next weekend and in the weeks ahead, there's going to be like more tangible ways for you to respond so that we can kind of track, all right, here's where we are in the progress, and we're going to keep you informed in the weeks ahead. This morning, if you wanted to go ahead and get started, you can do that through our Watershed app. There's real secure ways to do that. There's also real secure ways to do that on our website. Will you help us not just sustain what Watershed is right now, but help us grow into 2022?
And feel free to talk to us at the end of the service. We'll be in the back. My email, scott@watershed.charlotte.com, matt@watershed.com. Reach out to us. Any questions you might have, we'd love to be able to have this conversation. Thank you for letting us talk with you this morning.
Thanks.